Hey guys, Robert here. Before I start the video, I have something important to say. This is my first video completely made at home. Yes, I'm proud to now be making videos at home, and hopefully this will allow me to upload more frequently. Anyway, with that said, on to the video. Hey guys, Robert here, and welcome to Tutor Time. Drinking alcohol is a common activity for adults 21 and up in the United States. It makes up 13.9% of beverages consumed in the United States, according to this website that was hard to pronounce. The drink is still enjoyed outside the United States as far as 7000 BC, where the first recorded consumption of alcohol took place in China. The drink is commonly made from fermented grain and fruit, and contains the ethanol that's in alcohol, but there was a time in the United States where this drink was illegal for all ages. In order to fully understand Prohibition, we need to understand the 18th Amendment. In 1917, President Woodrow Wilson set a temporary wartime prohibition law. Later, Congress submitted the 18th Amendment, which sought to ban the manufacturing, transportation, and sale of intoxicating liquors. The amendment was officially ratified in all states on January 16, 1919. Now, you would think that this would put an end to alcohol, but in practice, no. You can see that the amendment said nothing about consuming alcohol, meaning it's still legal to consume alcohol. The only thing the law did affect was how people got their alcohol. But before we talk about that, let's find out why there would need to be an amendment written for alcohol. There have been many religious groups and perfectionist movements that were against drinking. Before a countrywide ban on alcohol, there were many states who tried to ban alcohol in the 1800s. For example, Maine passed the first state prohibition laws in 1846. During the Civil War in 1861, other states began to have prohibition laws. By the turn of the century, temperance movements have risen in popularity. Women across America have advocated for a nationwide ban on alcohol, since they say that alcohol might ruin families and marriages. Many groups were formed, like the Anti-Saloon League in 1893, to protest against alcohol. They have stated that the saloon culture was corrupt and that people would be more efficient at work if they didn't drink. Now that we're all caught up, we can continue. Despite prohibition laws that were set, the federal and local governments had trouble actually enforcing these laws. Initially, enforcement was assigned to the IRS, but was later enforced by groups like the Justice Department and the Prohibition Bureau. Yes, you heard that right. The IRS of all people were going to enforce prohibition laws. Enforcement was much stronger in areas that were okay with the legislation, like rural areas and small towns, but was much looser in urban areas. Despite their best efforts, like a reduction in drunkenness-related arrests by 30%, people have found ways to get their fix. If you ever want a good example of irony, just look at the purpose of prohibition. If you paid attention to the 18th Amendment, which I told you about, you can see that there's nothing about consuming alcohol, so it's technically legal to drink. But since no one sold alcohol, people had to resort to, other means of getting their alcohol. And here came the rise of the speakeasy. Speakeasies are illegal drinking establishments that were set up in shops and homes. You couldn't just walk into a speakeasy and get served, since they were trying to keep these places a secret, so you had to say a password if you wanted to come in. But you might be saying, aren't the police going to know about this? And to that I say, there's nothing a little money can't fix. So the owners started paying off police and city officials to look the other way. And these speakeasies aren't like your regular bars. These were like cabaret clubs, all around excitement. When you couldn't go to a speakeasy, you could always make homebrew moonshine by using a still. People used the desire for alcohol as a way to get money and power. Thus, the art of bootlegging was born. Bootlegging basically birthed the American Mafia, and they were a powerful force all across America. You've got Detroit, Boston, New Orleans, New York City, and Chicago, and those are only the ones on the top of my head. The century put people like George Remus, Dean O'Brien, and Al Capone on the map. These gangsters would transport liquor to local speakeasies by any means, and many of them fought in gang wars to eliminate the competition. Let's talk about Al Capone. Al Capone was not like any other criminal. Being previously stabbed in the head, he received the nickname Scarface. Now, you would think that criminals would want to commit crimes in secret since it's kinda illegal, but Al Capone carried a reputation. He was all over the media and was kind of a celebrity in Chicago. The police didn't even bat an eye, since they were either going to be slipped a few bucks or be threatened. This gangster had made $60 million annually. Al Capone, in one way or another, helped his community. But this is still a gang member we're talking about, so let's talk about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. On February 14th, 1929, a bootlegging deal was going on between what witnesses believed to be Al Capone's men and a rival gang, consisting of Irish mobsters. The deal turned out to be a setup, as men dressed as police officers, along with what was said to be Al Capone's men, pinned the rival gangs to the wall and executed them. There were said to be 7 casualties, 5 confirmed to be the rival gang and 2 unknown. You would think this was the worst of it, but it gets worse. It's 1929 and the stock market is crashing. 15 million Americans lost their jobs. Banks were failing. Parks were being turned into temporary shanty towns for the homeless. Restaurants who relied on liquor sales were now having to have waiters and waitresses ask for tips from customers so that the restaurants could subsidize their pay. People didn't have the time to care about Prohibition when they barely had money to support their families. Everyone was pointing fingers at President Hoover. If only there were more jobs that were open for people to fill. Well, that day couldn't come any sooner. Combine an arbitrary law that millions were breaking anyway, the corruption of the law, the rampant criminal activity, the bloodshed that were in people's neighborhoods, lack of jobs that could benefit people, then the straw that broke the camel's back came in the form of an economic calamity. You can see why people were begging for a change. People who were previously for Prohibition were now against it, since the law has caused more harm than good. Franklin D. Roosevelt has decided to campaign against Herbert Hoover in the 1932 presidential election. One benefit that FDR would bring was the repeal of the 18th Amendment. This was a game changer for many Americans, and it helped FDR secure some votes. People who were Republican sided with FDR, especially the reforming groups. When the election came, Franklin D. Roosevelt won by a landslide, and then on March 4th, 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt was inaugurated. Before FDR's inauguration, congressmen were already working on the 21st Amendment. Franklin D. Roosevelt passed the Beer and Wine Permit Act on March 22, 1933, making it illegal to sell beer while the 21st Amendment was being worked on. Then on December 5, 1933, the 21st Amendment was ratified, making it the first amendment to repeal a previous amendment. This basically marked the end of Prohibition. Bars and taverns opened up for thousands of customers quenching for thirst, and all-around excitement was had by all. States still had dry laws until 1966, when Mississippi had the last statewide prohibition laws. There still exist dry counties today, but in most places, Americans can finally raise a pint. And that's it. That was probably the longest tour time I've had, but unlike my other tour times, it had plenty of content. I hope you liked this video, and I surely enjoyed making it. It's been a while since I made an actual video, and if you like this video, leave a like and comment. And as always, stay epic. Bye everybody.